What it do, what it do. Hope everybody's doing good. All praise to the Most High. Gonna do another video. This one is not gonna be a Bible study, kind of more so a fireside chat. Kind of been talking a little bit about different stuff lately. We're talking about stuff that I've been researching forever. We're talking about transhumanism and AI and where society is. And I had a thought, and maybe we will start it off with the scripture. I remember the Messiah said in Matthew 24, he said, because lawlessness will increase, the love of many will grow cold. You know, I was thinking about something that I said, the corporatization of America. And I was thinking about that to myself just based on what I was seeing, and I looked it up, and I didn't realize that many other people were talking about it. Some people talked about the corporatization of education system, academia as they call it, corporatization of the healthcare industry, which is very true. I was talking to a doctor. Um, I won't even say where, but was talking to a doctor, cosmetic dentistry, and he has a background in psychology, and he was talking about how it's becoming corporate, and kind of the hurdles and all that. So it got me thinking: corporatization, America, the economy, of course, relationships. As you know, that's my passion. Relationship areas and kind of the kind of the breakdown of society as it relates to all those different areas, which includes technology, which includes education, which includes the spiritual, which includes the financial, which includes in some ways the political, global, geopolitical space we're talking about worldwide. And one thing I think, and like I say, I always talk about the importance of family. I always hit on that because of the importance, but I want to kind of talk about that and economics. So, and well, most of the culture and as well. So I don't think people understand the ecosystem. How in an ecosystem everything matters. This helps that helps this, and it keeps everything running. I think in our country we don't understand. We don't think about the ecosystem, the environmental ecosystem that we're in. Um, the rise of technology, the rise of isolation, the rise of anxiety, the rise of depression, if you will, the rise of people feeling extremely lonely, which if you go look up any report within the last 5 years, probably a little bit longer, but the last 5 years, loneliness has really skyrocketed. And of course, associated with loneliness is depression, other little symptoms. You can literally look it up. But one thing that I noticed was that there had to be a crushing of the family unit in order to bring about the new family unit. You say, what are you talking about? Well, the traditional family unit, I feel like I'm the only person who does this. I always include older relatives and generations when I talk about family living because or families, because that's typically how I go in other parts of the world. It's not just a mom and a dad. That's such an American thing. It's such a westernized thing. No, you had mom, you had dad, you had grandparents, you had aunts, you had uncles, and in some parts of country areas, as they call it in America, you still have people who are either live close by. I've seen as recently as probably a week ago where a lady, I want to say down in Mississippi or Louisiana or Alabama, her family owns the whole block, and they have little house, not little, pretty actually nice sized houses on the compound. It's about 4 or 5 houses, but they own that whole block. They're all family. But that's kind of that's becoming rare and rare, to the point even to hit on that a little bit. The land, how much have land value increased? How many people are fighting with the government just to even keep their homes, or fighting different issues to even keep their land? That's kind of a thing too. But to get back to my point, when we think about what the new family unit, as I call it, which I would call it the rising technological beast system, the merger of human and machine, the creation of the android, and I'm not talking about the phone. I'm talking about the people as androids, meaning how can I suck their human spirit out and make them android to the point where they become a little bit easier to control, aka propaganda. And this is really right out of the blueprint of Edward Bernays, going back to the 19, I want to say that was the 1930s or 40s, I believe, on propaganda and how to kind of, in essence, create a people. And I think, to go back to what I originally started off with about the corporatization of everything, I think it started in two areas. You do it with the economy, and you do it with the relationships. So the economy is interesting. I thought about this a while back. I said it's interesting how work has changed. I had a family friend say recently. They said that they was talking to someone, and the person was moved back to the country, and they moved back on their family farm, and the lady was telling them, "I am so happy. I am the happiest I've been in a long time. Being back on the prairie, being back on the farm. I grow some of my own foods, and I love it. Little small town, I love it. But it's funny because up until now, when I say now, I mean the last 10 years, people have had a desire to go back to that kind of slower pace. I think that's that human spirit trying to overcome the beast system a little bit. But people are trying to go back now. But within the last, I would say for sure, 40 or 50 years, it's interesting because growing your own food, being a farmer, working, with animals or on the land or near the land, um, those things were important once, but they start to be seen as not bringing in really money, And I ride horses, and I'm into that type of stuff actually. But I started to know you start to notice how the people who were into that type of stuff start to see that it wasn't a lot of money in it, and they don't care. People who love animal stuff, it's not about the money, but people have to survive, right? So the economic piece of it all is you start to see that they started pushing messages to, um, in essence, it's a two-pronged attack. They started pushing education more, where you know you had to go through their educational systems. And when you're talking about higher education or academia, you're talking about, um, you know, especially in the last 20 years, the affordability of it coming out with a lot of student loans, so on and so forth. But it's interesting because I think the very nature of the job market changed. And I think that easily go back to the 1930s, 1940s, probably 1900s. When you're talking about the actual labor that people did, it started to be more controlled. Now, this is my opinion, but it's as a student, but it started to be more controlled. And in that, who was controlling the business? Who was controlling society? Who was controlling the messages to the people at that time of this is what work is? Even working in a plant, in an auto plant. People say, well, that's a good thing because the people didn't have education, they could get a job at the plant. Yes, but even that was automating the human. And it was a guy actually said that, man. It was a guy back in the day. He said, man, I hate going to the Ford plant. I think it was Ford. No disrespect for it or whatever. But he said, I hate it. He said, I do the same thing over and over, and I feel, in so many words, he was like, it feels bleak. And I think that's actually a really good point because the socialization process, the commercialization process, all of it process is to ultimately you get people from doing a certain type of job, a certain type of calling, a certain type of, for generations, and then you shift them another area of the economy. But the economy that you're shifting them into, or the area of jobs you're shifting them into, you control that as well. So guess what? You can do that for 10 years and be let go. You can, what I'm saying? That has an issue of itself. It's kind of like a geopolitical, economic power play, from a sociological sense. So you got that, and then you got the relationships. So relationships, the past 50 to 60 years, probably a little bit longer, kind of around that area, started to deteriorate as well. And the sociological process of that was very interesting. I noticed probably within the past 15 years for sure, maybe probably longer than that, the push for educating the women. We gotta educate our girls. We gotta educate our girls. We gotta educate our girls. Which I have a theory with that because if you educate the women are gonna have less children. They've already done those studies years ago. So you really educate the women so that they won't have a lot of children, which goes back to relationships and goes back to also the God thing, which I'm going to be fruitful and multiply. But so as it is right now, you kind of look at that situation where you say, well, the relationships are in the state they're in, the economy is in the state that it's in, everything is going to mess. You kind of look and say, well, how did it happen? And I think it goes back to what the Messiah said in Matthew, because the love of many will grow cold. The trust between people and governmental institutions is low. The trust between people and even some church institutions are low. And all of that had to be created by the same media and geopolitical apparatus that's controls and or influences the economy, and controlling influences the media and the TV and all that stuff. It's kind of one entity. And I think the very interesting thing about it, when you're talking about the economy, you're talking about relationships, is ultimately you're heading into a new world order type of system, a beast type of system that ultimately doesn't really need the human in its natural habitat. So they don't need the human to grow food. Why? Because we will grow man-made bugs and insects junk. So we don't need you to grow your food. We don't need you connected to the earth. Why? Because that's an extension of the creator. So you're connected to him from a spiritual perspective. So we don't need that. And also we don't need you to really care about cooking your food, because we got 25 McDonald's and 25 this and that on the corner. So you don't have to worry about that. We got that covered, which is commercialized and which is poison and junk at every turn. So you see how it's really, and I think, for the lack of a better word, a type of rising of a beast system with 5 to 10 different tentacles, if you will. And I think the relationship piece is so fascinating too, because you destroy the relationship and fabric. You destroy the relationship and the family fabric, and then from that you can do anything that you want to the person. You can do anything you want to the individuals, because they have no base. So that's why you see technology as it relates to the social media, Instagram, social media dating, those things that really were not used because they weren't around, but they didn't even need to be used 30, 40, 50 years ago in some ways, or used now. But it seemed like in some ways they have caused more division than they have caused unity. And from a relationship standpoint, or relationships in general, you see where it's so, I think the whole system is just fascinating, because like you're literally fashioned after an android robot day after day, and you don't really know it. Your expectations, your desires, your taste, it's all being manipulated by the same people that control academia, the same people that are, have a imprint in social media, or should I say, like the media entity, as we like to say, the entertainment industry. The same people that has, a hand in even healthcare. Is like the apparatus of, I would call it, a new world order, like the new world order, the beast system that is rising, is ultimately something that rolls out of two areas. If we can shape and control the people's economy, if we control their work environment, if we become the big boss, if the corporations, I remember I started talking about corporation, y'all. If the corporations can become the big boss, they will become God. And if we tear up families, we will become God. We will become the foundation of what people look to, and we will control the messages that are put out there. The attack against the family, the attack against people, being together, is something that I don't think people study to see the ramifications of that. Even when we're talking about from a capitalistic standpoint. So if I got two people, I got a man and a woman, right? Just say two people, and I got them staying in a 1 bedroom apartment, right? So that's two people staying in a 1 bedroom apartment. Let's say they both work. One works full time, one works part time. Let's say it's 1,300. So boom, these two people are making it. In fact, they're paying it and have a little money left over. Or I can keep them separated, charge the woman 1,300, charge the guy 1,300, and now I build more units. I build more individuals, right? Because why? I want more money. And even when we think about the real estate industry, which a lot of people are starting to say more, it's very interesting how that's also becoming corporatized, where these not trust funds, but these corporate trust, corporate type places, buying up houses, and then and it's like people are like, man, they're buying the houses, and they're making them almost too expensive to be able to afford. But yeah, they are, because that's a part of the beast system. It is forming a one world identity. Wow, don't miss that. It is forming a one world identity. That is relationships, that is economic, that is educational, that is medicine. Think about medicine for a second. They're talking about which medicine really, that's another really huge area when you're talking about what medicine is, and you trace that back to Rockefellers. But what medicine is, and what I will say, not only what medicine is, but what it's become from a multi-dimensional standpoint. So when you had medicine, you had it. It's gone from this person is a healing person, or they know the steps to help you heal, to this person has become a corporate pimp of the pharmaceutical industry. You know what I'm saying? So and then now you got telehealth, where they're going to incorporate the technological beast into it. So I don't think people understand how the whole um, our whole ecosystem is beginning to be shaped toward the not economic, the artificial system. And it's very fascinating too, because when you think artificial, that's fake. That's a fake thing. And I remember a couple of years ago, I seen a quote from some of the Rastas out in Jamaica. They were saying how Babylon is fake. It's fake food. It's fake. You know what I'm saying? It's fake medicine. And when you think about it, it's very true. But in order for artificial, think about what I'm saying. Artificial intelligence. That's saying, hey, this intelligence is actually not real. This is a fake intelligence. But in order for the beast system to be like God, to mimic like God, an artificial entity, we have to do these things. We have to pull down relationships. We have to tear down and trust. We have to tear down access to good medical care. We got to tear these things down in order to create this system that we're creating, which is a one totalitarian sense. Which is like a one world totalitarian type sense thing. So to even, I'll say this too. We think about how to kind of pivot. Even growing your own food now, or especially if you got a little bit of land, like that's something that's a rebellion to the system. I don't know if I use that word rebellion, but that's like something to try to off the system. Another thing I would say, even relationships, why I talk about it so much. If a man and a woman, which is becoming hard because people are so socialized that they can't see the various ways that they're being sucked into different things. But if a couple know, hey man, we're gonna keep God first, we're gonna put God first, we're gonna do what we do, whether it's work, whether it's try to start a business, whether it's travel, whether it's move, whether it's whatever case may be, we're gonna be locked in this. We're gonna be locked in this, together forever. Like that's what we want. Like that's bucking the system, because they don't want that. Like it's interesting, the system, and we're all a little bit victim of it. Let's be honest. We all use a lot of social media. We all are, that we grow with it. So I'm not acting like I'm oblivious to it and I don't do it. But it's interesting when you notice some of the negative ramifications. You got dating websites increased within the last 15, 20 years, but the people are as lonely as they ever been. You see the dichotomy of that? It's like, okay, you got more of this, you got more screen time where you're connected with quote unquote thousands of people. But think about that artificially, meaning you're connected via a device, but you haven't probably talked to them on the phone. You probably have never met them. You probably have never texted them. And you probably have never done that over a consistent amount of time. Which is why, in order to form these systems, you need to have artificial relationships that correspond to the artificial intelligence. Oh man, so it's all an ecosystem. I think, and I'll wrap it up because I'm kind of rambling, but it's whatever. I think as a people, if you consider yourself a conscious individual, you're going to have to value your relationships. Like you're going to have to value your relationships if you have them, if you can maintain them, you should do that. And then you're going to have to maybe protest in where you eat, in how you eat, in how you move certain things. But ultimately, the system that they got set up is something where you got social scientists who have been studying this stuff for so long, to where people don't even realize what's going on. Like even when you talk about educate, when you talk about artificial, think about education, high school. So you went from maybe in the 50s, 60s, and 70s having and they're bringing it back to some degree now. I just don't know if the jobs will be there. But when you had some trades that were given to you at the high school level versus just kind of making it to where you have just nothing but test, standardized testing, that's what that's artificial. You go from doing something with your hand, your mind, or your you know what I'm saying, you're writing like something with your physical body, to now really kind of just wasting time. And that's why people come out and say, man, I don't know how to balance a checkbook. I don't know about credit. I don't know about none of that, but I went to school. Yeah, because you have to be induced into the artificial in order to be a member of the beast system. Like, it has to mess with your consciousness. Like, that's why it is what it is. Just be mindful, guys. Just be mindful of so much. I think it. When you're talking about the different tentacles that's going on in society, the different things, the different ways of getting pulled, the fake food, the fake this, fake that. It's not by accident. You say, oh, well, the relationship they don't seem authentic anymore. It doesn't seem like anything is authentic anymore. None of that is by accident. Stay sane and keep the Most High first. Peace.